for my recording to show me it's beginning there.
Yep, I saw it.
Okay. So Anderson, you're a term in, and we'd like to hear a little bit about how this first term has gone for you. Talk a little bit about the learning curve and what that was like, and I'm sure what you know now that you didn't know when you started this journey.
Yeah, so I was elected in 2017 to be on the Dubuque School Board. And for the past 4 years, I've had the privilege of being on the board. And for me, prior to being on the board, I've served on a variety of boards. So I understood the idea of strategic planning, understanding the mission, goals, and priorities of organizations, understanding how to work with your peers to accomplish your mission and your vision, and the value of collaboration, not only internally but also externally. So I had that skill set coming in. And for me, one of the things that I was intentional on when I was elected on the school board was to visit every single school building. And so up to COVID, I've been in every single building serving. And that's how I see myself as a leader. It's servant leader. I've been in every single building serving in a variety of capacity. If it's serving lunch, if it's taking out the trash, wiping tables, brooming, reading to kids, meeting with teachers, both teachers and paraprofessionals, providing equity training, attending community school events, just really immersing myself just in every single building, even in different departments throughout the district. If it's finance, if it was transportation, if it was the food, communication, I really wanted to know what was working, what wasn't working, and how do I bring all of those voices up to the school board level. I've also had the privilege of working with the larger community on a variety of different initiatives that still align with our strategic plan. And so, if it was taking students on their first college visits, not just a 4 year, but also 2 year, NICC, focusing on exposing our kids to trades, working with our unions on a variety of events. One specifically is the Back to School Bash, where we specifically focus on exposing our younger kids to trades, you name it, just really emerging myself. And so, again, I had that skill set coming in, trying to be a servant leader. One of the things that I've learned just being on the school board is the importance of community and making sure the community is aware of what the district is doing so that they can play a role. Because uh, what I found out and continue to learn is less resources is coming to us from the state level when it comes to state funding. And I don't believe it's always just give money, but there's always an opportunity for someone in the organization to align with us. If it's, again, making sure all of our kids have access to apprenticeship programs, or they're able to do current courses within the district. The private sector who comes in and give us different tools and resources, like all of that matters to ensure our students are college and career ready. And then the pandemic was something I didn't anticipate happening when I ran for school board. But I think that's something that truly stretched me as a leader, because during that process is trying to remain calm, collective, and being a leader that people can come to and share their thoughts and opinion from both sides, and still trying to find ways to bring our community together and move forward. I do believe in finding common ground with people. And so that has been important to me, and trying to give people hope throughout this journey has been something that I strive to do. And sometimes you have to say some tough things. And what I mean by that is, even during the state level, when you're hearing things like, charter schools, and it's not, those are not healthy words that I believe in. And so just writing to the legislators, attending different state conversations to make sure that when legislators are making decisions, they're hearing all voices. And so I wanted to make sure I spoke on behalf of our district to say this is how it will truly impact us if you move forward with this initiative. So just making myself available at all levels, and servant leadership is truly something I believe in.
Okay, and talk a little bit more about the pandemic and the choices that and votes that the school board had to make, and kind of how those shaped up for you. What were you mostly listening to in trying to find your way through those uncharted waters?
Yeah, so the first thing, when the pandemic first hit, one of the things that I thought about as we're talking about how are students going to come in with the essential things that they need to start off the school year, I worked with the community for the back to school bash, and we made sure that every single kid who was truly at risk or underserved, they had access to hand sanitizers, masks, thermometers, books, school supplies, you name it. Again, so families could start off the school year. During the pandemic, the most important thing for me was to allow the data, our data, to help me make my decision. I was able to listen to a variety of people on both sides, those who believed in masks, those who didn't believe in masks and wanted me to shove the mask, in certain places. I heard it all. And for me, again, as a leader, I think it's important to listen to people because people want to be heard. And for me, it was okay, listen to those opinions, listen to how this is impacting people, not only physically, but also the brain health component. I thought that was a part of the conversation that was missing. We didn't talk about how the mask impacted people mentally, and I shared the story with my board colleagues, and it aligns with my current job, focusing on poverty and neighborhood support. Our city manager did a RFP to have a consultant come in and do a study on poverty, and it cost us $30,000, I believe. And I remember looking at the city manager in our one-on-one meeting, and I said, "Why are we doing this? I can tell you all about poverty. I grew up in poverty. I marinate in this community where there's high concentration of poverty. I can do that and we can save money." And if you know the city manager, he was calm, collective. He put his glasses down and he says, "Anderson, you probably can't tell me about poverty, but unless I have the data, I can influence the policymakers or the citizens that this initiative is important." And it just hit home to me that it's important to look at our local data. Yes, there's the CDC, there's things going on nationally, but we have to be data informed and we can't always just react off of our emotions. And so for me, it was looking at our dashboard. It was making sure that that was being the reason why I made my decision, and encouraging my colleagues on both sides, like, hey, I get the emotion. I get what the standards say, CDC, but we can never forget all politics starts local, and we have to allow that local data to influence our decisions because it's going to be hard, and it really was hard to influence the policymakers and our citizens on both sides that this is what we need to do. And I believe we found common ground, and I think it still allows both parties to feel that we're hearing them, that this issue matters to all of us, and that we truly care about all kids. So for me, again, it's about the common ground. It's looking at the data and using my own leadership skills of just listening to everyone, taking all of those information and using that as I'm looking at the data to make my decision.
So, Anderson, if you could expand on that just a little bit, while you and your colleagues may have the wherewithal to look at the data to base your decisions on, many of the parents, it's all emotional, and they feel strongly one way or another, and they don't care about data. They care about having the ability to make choices for their children. And so, how do you bridge that?
Yeah, I think the way that you bridge it is what we did. What was the end product for us to say, you know what? Here's going to be the data point for all of us. If it gets to a certain level, which for us was at 3%, we're going to put mask on. And we also talked about for those who still feel that, hey, I don't like the mask for whatever reason, it's mentally or physically harming my child. We added that exemption, and that's also looking at what other districts are doing. and making sure if that could resonate with what we do in our community. So I think what we did, it is a balance. It is listening to both sides. There's still data involved because, again, as I mentioned earlier, you may disagree with this idea of having a mask on, or you may agree with it, but it's hard to go against our local data. And if our data shows that, it's getting kind of out of whack, we need to adjust. We believe most people are going to say, you know what, you're right. And we use words that would truly, I believe, connect with people. Temporary, words matter. And so we used the word temporary requirement versus the language both sides were using. Well, you need to mandate, or don't you mandate. For some people that was threatening, but I believe the word temporary, people can see kind of the end goal here, like, okay, it won't be that long and then we can go back to normal.
So, oh, go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say that issue was probably the most contentious thing you had to deal with in these 4 years that you've served. And not only the lengthy meeting at which you listened to people and their stand up and talk about their feelings, but it was contentious among board members. And that is not something we have seen from the school board for a while. And I just wonder how you felt like the board navigated that, and where that, where it kind of left y'all going forward.
Yeah, I think one of the things I can never take away from any board members, and I've been talking to a variety of people throughout the community who have invited me to come talk about me running. I said each one of those board members, they want what's best for kids. That's the end goal for each and every single one of us. The strategy may be different, but the desire to do what's best for kid is there. I believe in that. We all have our different opinions and thoughts, and I think it's that those are healthy. There was healthy discussion. At time, it got a little heated, but it never changed the end goal of us wanting to do what's best for kids. And my viewpoints never changed based on hearing the frustration, because I knew they wanted what's best for kids. And so relationships matter. When you're able to have a tough conversation and call each other the next day and say, okay, here's what I'm thinking, or here's how I would like to move forward. That's important on any board or any commission. And, I have strong relationships with all of the board members currently right now. And again, most citizens don't see us behind the scenes talking and trying to figure out what's the best and healthiest thing to do, who are the experts we need to bring to the table to have conversation. And we have an amazing superintendent who knows how to bring us all back to, again, the end goal when we're staring off.
So you touched, Anderson, a little bit on brain health
Mhm.
in that answer, and I was hoping you could just expand on that a little bit. It seems like an issue that's being brought up by other candidates, people in the community, and I actually saw that in the article that we wrote in the TH. And I just hope you could kind of expand on that beyond COVID. And it seems like that might be a priority for you, and what you have in mind for that.
Yeah, brain health is a priority for the district. It's something we called out during some of the federal funding that's coming in to support either brain health or closing achievement gap or providing people alternative things to do after school hours. Because you never know what someone is dealing with. And I'll share your story. My first year on the school board, again, I visited every single school building, and I'll never forget a teacher telling me, Mr. Anderson, I have to unpack what's in my student's book bag. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? She said, I don't know if my child is hungry. I don't know if my child just saw someone get physically abused. I don't know if there's drug involved. And so there's so much that our teachers have to unpack in a student that at times they don't even have the tools to do it, especially if there's a difference culturally with the student and the teacher. And so if you're not prepared to deal with that, there's no way our students are going to be prepared to learn, even with food, making sure that our students have healthy meals in the morning. Again, poverty is increasing in this community, and not every kid has the same access to start off the school year. And so brain health could be the mental, it could be the physical, it could be the stomach. And that's not just for our students, it's for our teachers as well. They're human beings as well, and there are things that they need in order to do their job to their best abilities. And so it is a priority. We've been doing different social and emotional trainings for our teachers. We're trying to make sure it's culturally relevant. So as our teachers are interacting with students who are different from them, they understand how to process and unpack things with their students. And so I do think brain health will be an ongoing, I'm gonna use the word opportunity for the entire community, because it's not just in our school building. You have parents and guardians who are going in the workforce dealing with that. And no longer can we have this old school mentality where you leave that at the door, right? No, you have to have social emotional intelligence and being able to unpack stuff with your students, unpack stuff with your teachers, unpack stuff with your employees in order for them to maximize their full potential.
Do you have any specific initiatives or programs or anything in mind to help students with that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we do provide social and emotional training. We've provided yoga and meditation inside of our school building. I personally work with the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque on their brain health initiatives. As part of the Back to School Bash, every single year there's always a theme that's infused in there. Besides reading, we talked about STEM, we talked about empowering women, we talked about arts, and there was a component for brain health where we had some teachers come at the Back to School Bash and practice meditation, yoga, and just really allowing students to, understand how to unpack and talk about their feelings and thoughts. And so there's a variety of things that we're currently doing. And I think just even moving forward, it's not necessarily to me us starting a new program, but it's sustaining some of the initiatives that we've had and looking potentially down the road for new opportunities. Because right now, I believe one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with outside of all these other complex issues, right? There's kids hungry, there's brain health, there's low funding. We have to begin to talk about workforce solution, starting with retention first. I heard that in a board meeting, because we have people that are here in our building first that are stretched, that are overwhelmed, and we have to remind them that they're valued. So retention first. Then we have to look at different strategies to recruit and grow our own workforce.
Anderson, I know that the school district, a lot of other school districts have gotten COVID relief funds, and those are being invested or spent in a number of different ways. I'm kind of curious in terms of which of these programs you think are important to continue after that initial COVID money runs out on an ongoing basis.
Well, I think in order for me to make an informed decision like that, I'll have to see what the impact has been and what the data shows us. Because of course you would want to keep all of those things. But again, you have to let the data make the informed decision. And wherever there's great things happening and we don't have the resources, I truly believe when you tell the community, they find ways to participate. And so right now, all of those initiatives are important to me because they align with our strategic plan. We'll be looking at what the data shows on the impact, and wherever there's opportunities to scale, we'll be looking for the community to support us.
Great. I know that there's been some discussion off and on, and probably will be going forward with regard to the combination, I guess I would say, of the changing geography of our population, moving more westward, as well as the current buildings and which ones might need to be renovated, where there might need to be some consolidation, some new buildings built. I guess interested in your take on that. What do you see as the likely route in terms of either additional buildings, renovated buildings, consolidation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, what we will do and what we've done in the past, prior to me coming on the board, we had a strategic plan specifically for all of our buildings. So, it's a 10-year plan to show here are the buildings that we need to focus on. And so, our last building was the senior renovation. And so, we will be having conversation on what does the future hold for us when it comes to buildings and infrastructure. And so, with less funding coming into the district, it is our responsibility as a board to look at ways to be more efficient. And the superintendent has provided us some examples of what we could do in the elementary and at the middle school to consolidate buildings and save the taxpayers money. And so, I think that is our responsibility to find ways to save money, to find ways to be more efficient, and at the same time, to continue to provide excellent service to our students and teachers. And at the same time, look at future opportunity at the Southwest Arterial to build something new and to potentially grow in student population. And so all of that will be in our conversation, hopefully down the road with the board and doing a strategic planning on what's priority and including our community, because all of that is a process. We're not just going to do things without including input from our teachers, input from the taxpayers, but we will look for an opportunity to do a strategic plan for all of our buildings down the road.
I follow that that'll be a process and will take time, particularly if we're looking at building new facilities. In the shorter term, how big a priority do you put on getting air conditioning into all the schools? Do you think that's an immediate need? Would you put that as a long-term need or somewhere in the middle?
I think for me right now, when I think about air conditioning, I have to think of what's the long game here, and we don't want to make again emotional decision. Yes, air conditioning is important for all of our kids, especially when the weather is changing. But having a North Star that says, "Hey, here's all the buildings that we need to focus on. Here's the cost," and again, that's data that we can again inform our citizens and the policymakers like myself, and we can point back to this is why we made that decision. And so right now, I wouldn't say that putting AC in the buildings is going to be the top priority, because you have to put all the projects together and talk about what's priority and why is that.
Okay. We've got quite a few people running for school board this time, and which is great to see. But it can be difficult for readers, for voters to discern, which way they want to cast their ballot and understand, and differentiate between a bunch of people that, frankly, all seem to have good motivations. Talk a little bit about how you would explain to readers the importance of keeping you on the board, and particularly as an African American man and as the only elected Black official in our area, sort of what that's been like for you and what you've been able to bring that no one else is doing right now.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing that I would remind or inform any person who's going to vote, number one, I've been in every single building. So there's some candidates, and I think all of them are trying to do their best to get elected. And I mentioned to them, when you're putting your heart out there, that's important. But I've been in every single building, right, serving. And so that shares a lot about just my leadership. I've been in a variety of different department buildings as well, serving. I've done things on my own time to take kids on college tours, visits. And so I live this idea of servant leadership. And I'm not saying no other board members won't do that coming in. And I hope they do. I hope I can be a model for them, because that matters to teachers. I actually had a mother who reached out to me, and she says, "You know what? The reason why I'm voting for you is because my daughter says you truly care about STEM. She's seen what you've done." And that matters to me. I've had teachers who said, I've never seen a school board member until I've seen Mr. Anderson. And the funny thing is, when I go in different buildings, I never tell anyone I'm on the school board. As a matter of fact, I've had people say, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm just a parent and I just want to serve. But who sent you? I said, I just want to serve. But why are you here? Then I say, okay, I'm on the school board. Then the power dynamic comes in there, right? And people get nervous. But for me, you truly have a leader who serves in a school building. He's heavily involved in the community as well. He knows how to partner with different organizations. And I have the trust and respect of the community. And I don't take that lightly or for granted. But relationships do matter, where I can pick up the phone call and call a different either business, or I can call a nonprofit organization or a community leader and say, hey, we have a need right here. And that's not just on a local level, that's on a state level as well, with my affiliation on a variety of boards. And so all of that matters. And I'm just a leader who wants to serve. And so I think that's important.
Anderson, can you talk about a little bit more about those other boards that you serve on, either locally or at the state level, and what those connections?
Yeah, so I serve currently on the Arts Board. I serve on the STEM State Board, Regional State Board, Volunteer Iowa, where I lead also the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for that committee. I've served in my church, the Dream Center, St. Mark Youth Enrichment, Steeple Square Board. I was on the future leadership of Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. And I'm probably missing a few, but just with those spaces that I'm in and providing leadership, number one is building relationship. Number two, understanding the goals and priorities of those boards and commission, and understanding how can I align those missions to the mission of the school district. So making sure our kids have access to STEM, not just 4-year STEM opportunities, but also apprenticeships, also just trades, making sure the arts, making sure when I'm on the committees for brain health, always asking, what about students? So being an advocate right there, and looking at things from a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. Of course, I think, I humbly say this, I think I probably have more experience in that space when it comes to DEI, just because of my not only personal, but also professional experience. So, when we had the tragic of what was going on with George Floyd, I brought that lens to the board and able to share my perspective whenever there was an issue with race within our district, just being able to provide that voice or that perspective that maybe some board members don't have. And even just my experience just growing up and living in poverty all my life, just being able to provide that voice and that experience, because not only do I know about it, but being involved in the community, I can say, well, here's what, the community says, and I can bring that community voice to that level.
So with
Very good.
serving, did you have something else, Bob?
Nope, just thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Having served your first term on the school board, Anderson, looking back, is there anything that you supported that you wished you wouldn't have, or that you didn't support that you wish you would have?
No. Anything that I supported, it came from a good place, a good heart, and it came from being informed. And so I give you a great example. My first year on the school board, there was a huge conversation of, do we keep Prescott a charter or not? And it got a variety of people, not as much as the mass, but it had a variety of people just riled up. I went inside Prescott. I talked to a variety of teachers of why is this charter important to you, and for them it was a sense of belonging, and I voted for it, although the data did not show the outcome that it was originally intended to do. So the data or the original document for the charter, they wanted to not only diversify with different leaders, but they also wanted to close the achievement gap. We have not been able to close the achievement gap with the charter status. But I knew just listening to them that it was a place and a sense of belonging for them just to have that status. And when the vote came, I voted to have the charter school, and I did not regret it one bit because I heard the parents, I heard the teachers, I heard the principal. And then afterwards, although I believe it was a 4-3 or maybe a 5-2 vote, I did not forget the mission, right? You know, because when you lose, you feel like, okay, that sucks, and you don't want to be probably engaged. But I couldn't forget the mission, right? We still had to do what was best for students and move everyone forward. And so any decision that I've made, I try to make sure that I prayed about it. I looked at the data, took my emotion out of it as much as possible, and always made sure, Anderson, is this what's best for kids? And as long as I have that as my end goal, I live with peace.
Thank you.
Anderson, if a voter asked, well, Anderson, why aren't your own kids in the public school system? Because I know you've got some kids at Our Lady of Guadalupe. Can you speak to that and why you made that personal choice for your family?
Oh yeah, I think that's real important. But let me go a step back. So I moved here in 2006 to go to the University of Dubuque to get my business administration degree. Then eventually got my master's from the University of Dubuque. Since 2006, I've been involved in the school district, either with mentoring, teaching steps, you name it. And so I've already had a passion for the students there, even kids that don't look like me. So it was a personal commitment, a personal investment for me to mentor, play my role. As I got my own kids, there was an opportunity for my students or my kids to learn a different language. English is not my first language. Creole is, and then English is my second language. So my mother and father is from Haiti, and my wife spent majority of her life overseas, so she learned Spanish. And so having that opportunity for our kids to learn a different language was very important to us, and we wished all kids had that opportunity. So that's why we made that decision. My oldest son right now does go to Washington Middle School, but I always take a step back and try to remind folks that just think about this. I didn't have any kids in the school district, but I invested a lot of time in the school district with kids that didn't belong to me, right? With other people's kids, taking them on their first college visits, not just a 4-year, but a 2-year, mentoring other people's kids and kids that don't even look like me also. And so I don't think anyone else will put that much investment. But for me, it was personal, and it was, again, just servant leadership that I wanted to play a role because I graduated from a public schools, and I know there's a lot of kids who either look like me or have my experience that need hope, and I try to be that for them.
Thanks. In trying to, again, discern how Anderson stands out amid these candidates, talk about what you see as a challenge on the horizon for the school district and how your skills and experience might help to deal with that challenge.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenge moving forward past this pandemic is trying to get over this hump with the pandemic, not just physically, but the emotional. So I think, having a leader who has the connection with the community to make sure that we have resources for brain health, that's important. Workforce, again, I believe is a huge issue that we need to work with the community on. And so currently right now, I work for the city of Dubuque, and I'm involved with the Dubuque Chambers, and workforce solution is a number one priority that they've identified. And so being part of those conversations and making sure that they don't forget about the school district. And I know talking to the chamber that they want to make sure that the school district is a priority when they talk about workforce solution. And then I just think the overall just servant leadership, you have to have a leader who can provide hope to everyone, who knows how to bring people together collectively, who understands the importance of data gathering. Sorry, I have someone reaching out to me. I'll come back and grab that. Yep. My apologies for the people who are watching too. So I just think I bring a variety of skill sets of just leadership, understanding how to put a strategic plan together that can guide all of our leadership forward, knows how to connect with the business partners and have the trust in the relationship, and who's just willing to listen to everyone. I think all of that is important. And so I'm not a candidate who's a one topic or a one issue person. I bring a variety of experience to the table, a variety of knowledge, and I'm always willing to learn from anyone. And so that's what you get when you vote for Anderson. And I can look at things from an equity lens too, which I think is an icing on the cake. Because we still have to find ways to close the achievement gap. We still have to find opportunities to move all of our kids forward. And when we say all kids, you have to have someone who feels comfortable calling the uncomfortable things out, who's not going to shy away from it. And I'm a leader who knows how to do that in a safe way, and it's inviting for people to have that discussion with me.
In your new role with the City of Dubuque and the Office of Shared Prosperity, will there be, I would think that your role there and your role as a school board member could see some crossover, could see one would inform the other, should we say. How do you see that those two things kind of helping you build your understanding of broader perspective?
There's always been a good partnership between the city and the district, and how to leverage our talents and our resources to make Dubuque a better place. And with this new role, I think it just only enhances my ability to bring up the real issues and bring the voices at that level, the board level. And so poverty is going to be a big issue. There's poverty that's spread out through our community, with a heavy focus in our downtown. And so, what can I do in both roles to align the city and the district and their resources to change the system? Because it's not necessarily too much about the program, but we need to look at the system as a whole and ask ourselves, why isn't this working for everyone? What do we need to do different? And I do believe some of it involves not just changing policies or procedures, but making sure that the right people have the right positions and the right opportunities to maximize their full potential. And so it's a privilege for me to be in both of these positions and being an advocate for people, especially those who traditionally are not included.
Anderson, is there anything that we haven't asked you about that you'd like to share, or colleagues, anything that you want us to hit on here?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me again is to remind people of just my commitment. Prior to being on the board, I've been serving, and up on the board, serving in every single building, not some building, every single building I've been in multiple times, connecting with people. You can go and ask teachers and have a picture of me. Have you seen this young man, this tall young man? And they're going to tell you, yes, we have. Well, what was he doing? Well, that crazy guy was feeding kids, or he was taking the trash out. The amount of either janitors that said, hey, you don't have to take the trash out. I said, I know, but I want to, right? And it just changed their thought process. The paraprofessionals, you name it. I just been in those spaces to show them that I'm not just here to sit in a chair and make decisions without understanding how it impacts you. And then it's not just only on the board level, but in the community. Now people can see someone that looks like them or have their experience to say, you know what, he's going to fight for me. And not just on a local level, at the state level as well. I've written articles. Thank goodness you guys gave me that opportunity in that space to talk about ways to bring the community together, to bring healing, and just to move our community forward. All of that matters in leaders. And I'm just happy I can be one of those for right now. And hopefully in the next few years, we'll have more leaders who are inspired and they want to run as well.
Okay, great. Well, about 2.5 weeks left, I think, of some campaigning, and wish you luck the rest of the way. Thank you for your service to our community, and thank you for your time today, Anderson.
Thank all of you, and I hope you guys have a good weekend.
You as well.
Yep. Thanks, Anderson.
Thanks, Anderson.
Bye.